Okay. But yes, so we'll have this session, and anyone who has a question, you just feel free to ask a question in the chat box, or later on you can just ask whatever you want to know if there is anything. Also, I'm gonna do this. We had this session for also students from Ghana, and I'm excited that I was part of those who are able to support the team on the ground. The last actually week, I've been working together with young people to see that they are able to write good applications. So, for the start, um, I am a 2019 Mandela Washington Fellow, and I started applying since 2017. So that means I applied consecutively for the 2 years before I got accepted. And so when I was applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I was writing, figuring out what to write. I never had someone to tell me, then this is what you need to write. So first time I didn't get any information. Second time I didn't get any information. And then the third time, when I applied, that's when I was sent an information that I was shortlisted for the interview. And that was the time I was actually giving up. I know maybe here there are people who have applied and they're like, no, I'm tired of applying. I met people like that. They're like, I'm tired of applying. I applied 2, 3 times and nobody, called me. I was not even given any information about the status of my application. So this is a common thing with many people. And I actually know people who applied 5 times before they got accepted. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship has a way of, applying that you need to hit it on spot. And so if you're able to get it right, definitely you will go through and you'll be called for the interviews. But now today I'll just expose what it means to be, applying for the fellowship, and also to share some practical tips and experiences that you will need for your application process, and also some of the questions, because every year they twist the questions a little bit. So I have the questions for this year, and also I'll tell you what is really required. And I think that's the most part of our presentation, to really look into the questions that they're asking this year and how you can put them right. So many people still don't know what the Mandela Washington Fellowship is all about. Somebody asked me, because the word fellowship is normally used in churches. So they said, which church do people go to when they go to the Mandela Washington Fellowship? And I'm like, wow, this is interesting, because information is really good. This is not a church fellowship. It is a training program that, targets young people from sub-Saharan Africa. So for those of you who know about the sub-Saharan Africa, is a part of Africa with a limited number of countries. That means this program is not for the whole of Africa, it's not for the whole world, but it's for a specific group of people and countries who will be able to apply for this program.
Sorry about that. Looks like okay. Welcome back, Danaya. We lost you a bit.
Sorry. I hope you can hear me now. Yes. So I was saying about the Yali program, and this Mandela Washington Fellowship program came in during the time of Obama. He actually pushed the idea to make sure that there are many young African fellows or youth to travel to the US to learn from the US experiences and business. So the program is for people between the ages of 25 years old and 35. And one of the key things about the program is that they're looking for young people who have a records of leadership. One of the things about the fellowship is that you must identify yourself as a leader. And then somebody will say, how do I identify as a leader? Well, it just wants to know your records of being influential in your community. It could be during the time of your school. How did you exercise leadership? Maybe if you're leading an association, maybe you're a member of an association, you're volunteering somewhere. How have you shown that you are concerned about the people you're working with? So the fellowship program, you cannot jump from the street and say, hey, I want to apply for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, because at the end of the day, you will be struggling to put an application, and you'll be struggling to get content to put for your application. So the most important thing about the Mandela Fellowship is that you need to know who you are. You need to know what kind of leadership journey you have taken. Do you have any information about community, about volunteering, about doing something for your people? So this is where it is really tricky. But then this is the first thing you should always have in mind as you're thinking of applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. You need to ask the question, what is it that you're doing in your community? Are you all seeing my presentation? I think, I'm not so sure. Okay, thanks for the reminder. I was on my own. Sorry about that. Let me do that again. So I am here. Right. If you can see it, just put in the chat box and just say yes, that's fine. And thanks for reminding me. So the program takes about 700 young people every year from Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, to the US. So you can imagine 700 young people, all they're being sponsored, and they're taken to the US to different universities. So what happens is that when you do your application and then there's a shortlisting that goes on, you will be attached to a university. You'll be university. You spend like 6 weeks in the US, working with professors who and so most of the universities leadership institute, they focus on three things. So when you're applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, there is what we call the track. One is the civic engagement, and then we have the business leadership for entrepreneurship, people who are in business, and then we have public engagement. Now, the leadership in business is tailored for fellas who aspire to become leaders in the private sector, more especially if you're passionate about business and you want to really grow as a business leader. Then the leadership in business is one of the things that you should consider when you're applying for. So they connect you to universities. They already selected universities that the Mandela Washington Fellowship team knows. So you're attached to that university. They have professors who are really good in business, and then they give you the training tailored, for you to be a leader in business. And then we have the second track, which is in civic engagement. This is for people who work in the civic space, maybe people who work in advocacy, generally in organizations, non-governmental organizations. So if you fall in that category, like as I said, you need to know what you are doing for your community. If what you're doing, maybe you're running a business, a startup that you're doing, or else you're working in an organization, you're running a cause, you're doing things for the community. So you really need to understand before you do your application. So this is the second track, and then we have the leadership in public management. These are fellas who work maybe in government institutions and maybe international organizations, and people who, uh, work in think tanks and other institutions of concern. So mostly for South Sudan, what I want to say for South Sudan is that most of the people are taken for leadership in business, and they also consider leadership in the civic engagement. And then for people who normally go under public management are people who work in government institutions mostly. Like this year, Golab, who is the youth leader in South Sudan, he was part of this, and I think there are two or three of them who participated in this. So South Sudan normally selects 10 people who go for this program. We have been, engaging with the embassy to see that they at least increase the number. Even if 15, that would mean a lot. And because we have other countries, they have bigger representations like Nigeria, other countries in Africa, they have big numbers up to 30. So we are really working hard to see if we could have a consideration to have at least 15 people from South Sudan. So you can imagine they take 10 people from South Sudan. And so, like, there was a year in my time, about 500 people applied for the program. You can know that this program is very, very competitive, very competitive. So if you don't put a compelling application, your essays, the things that you need to write, then you can easily be dropped. The procedures, the things that people are looking for. And exactly, I'm glad that we're here for this part. And so they have developed what they call the common leadership curriculum. So if you're in leadership in business, you're taken maybe to one of the universities, the same curriculum can be used in another university, and then they can add a little bit. But again, the experiences will be, when you meet with different business people, you get to know what is happening in those communities. If you're working in, for example, if you're for civic engagement, they take you to big organizations of interest. They also bring those people to the institution just for you to learn. It's a reciprocal, like, learning. You want to share your experiences, what do you know about your country, about Africa, and also you want to learn from the American way of doing business or even leading institutions. So they have already established a curriculum. And then when people go to the US for the 6 months, they go to different universities, different institutions, what we call the institutions. And then after the time of 6 weeks, everybody comes to Washington, D.C. And this is now what we call the Fellowship Summit. And this Fellowship Summit now brings together all the 700 fellows from Africa together. Now, what happens at the summit? There are presentations. There's a lot that goes on during the summit, and I'm glad that we have participated at least this year in the summit. So this lady you see here is from Uganda, just from our neighbor. I was with her this year in for the summit, and she was given an award for being an impactful leader because she has used a lot of her knowledge, in promoting her work and making sure that she's able to apply the skills she learned in her organization. So there's a lot that happens during the summit, and everybody looks to this. They bring all the 700 people together. They bring other stakeholders, other organizations, founders, and donors. They bring them together. So it's more of a networking, where you also listen to policies, to government leaders and what they say about their programs for Africa, specifically the US government. Like this year, I was privileged to host a session by the Department of State secretaries, and we're talking specifically about policies for Africa. And it's one of the biggest sessions during the summit. And I think in 2000 and in the beginning, they had the president Barack Obama came for the summit to speak to the young leaders, and they normally bring big people in the government. This year we had Tony Blinken, who is the Secretary of State, who came in and graced the event, and he spoke to young people. It was an amazing moment. Like, people get inspired, and then you get to learn from each other, meeting each other, get to know what other people are doing in their communities, in their different countries. So another thing about the fellowship is that it gives you an opportunity to work for at least a month in the US through the program they call Professional Development Experience, or sometimes they call it PDE. So the PDE is like an internship program after you go for the fellowship program. And most people, not most, but a few of them remain in the US for about a month to work with non-profit organizations or even in the government and other institutions of their interest. So you don't get selected for this just automatically, but you have to apply for it. There are also questions that you need to answer. You need to show your interest. Say, after the fellowship, I'm considering to apply for the PDE, and there are questions that you need to answer. We'll go through them. Sorry, I'm going faster because I want to go to the main core of the application, which are the questions, so that we go to them. Now, who can apply for this program? I briefly say that this program is for young people between 25 and 35. And these are leaders, people who identify as leaders. But sometimes there are exceptions. I think South Sudan had one person from the age of 22 or 23 who attended the program. One of the years I can't remember. But yes, if you are truly a leader in your community, or you identify with a good application, you try to show that you're a good leader, even if you are out of the age bracket, there will still be a consideration for you. However, they are looking for young people between the ages of 25 and then 35. So if you are between 21 and 24, still you can put your application. Even 36, you can still put your application. I'm sure that there are people who are even older and they have participated in the program. And then one of the eligibility criteria is that you should not be a US citizen or based in the US, and that you should also be eligible to receive the US J1 visa. That's the kind of visa they give you to go to the US. If you have any issues with visa, and if the US cannot give you the visa, you're not eligible, then it becomes hard for you. But of course, most of the people who are selected, at least they go to the US. And then you must not be uh, a family member of people who are employed benefiting from US organizations or US government. You must be someone who works with the US aid. It becomes hard for you because they believe that there is already a transfer of knowledge and you're benefiting from the US programs or from the US government, or nobody should be able to you shouldn't be part of any family that is employed, or you should not even be employed. And the other thing is that you must really be good in reading and writing and even speaking English, because the training program will all be in English. So if you can't really speak good English, it becomes hard. But we have had people from Burundi, because I've been reading applications for Burundi and Congo. There are people who can't speak really good English, but they can understand. At least they can ask questions, they can express themselves. So I think for South Sudan, if you learned in English, you have an upper hand. So long as you can read, you can write, and you can speak, you can express yourself very well. And of course, a citizen of one of the sub-Saharan countries, in which South Sudan is one of the countries, and you must be living in one of the countries in the sub-Saharan region. And then lastly but not least, you must not be an alumni. So once you participated in the program, you will not participate again. Someone like me, so I cannot apply again for the Mandela Washington Fellowship because I've already participated in it. So what do they consider when they are selecting people? One, you have to prove that you are a leader. This is what I wanted to say again. You need to prove that you're a leader and you have some success stories. I will call them success stories because those are the things you'll be writing them. Whether in business, whether in civic engagement, maybe within your organization through your voluntary work, maybe you're working in the government, you need to know at least what has been the impact of what you're doing. This is very important because you have to bring that out in your essays. And then another thing is that you must be someone who is really committed to the public or community service. It's either volunteering or you're doing mentorship program like what Bida is doing through this organization. I mean, this is a big thing that you're doing. Anyone, maybe in your school, maybe in your community, you're running a project or any activity that you're doing, and it has an impact. Please stick to it, and then you have to base your essays on it and write it clearly, and then you should have the ability to work cooperatively in diverse groups and to respect the opinions of others. One of the things about the Mandela Washington Fellowship is that they bring people from different backgrounds. You're from South Sudan, different culture, different beliefs, and then they're going to put it together with somebody from Angola you don't know. They have different cultures, different beliefs, and different things. So they want to know that in your application, you can demonstrate that you can work with different types of people, you know, working in, different cultures. You should be able to demonstrate that in your application. So if you are able to, for example, in South Sudan, if you're able to work with different cultures, different tribes, that is an added bonus for you, something that you can consider to put in your application. And then another thing is that you must have strong social and communication skills. Communication is key. You have to really identify that in your application. We will go through the questions and then we'll see that. And then another thing is that you must have a demonstrated knowledge of interest in and professional experience in the preferred sector or track. So we have three. We have leadership in business, we have civic engagement, and then we have the public engagement. Now, you must have demonstrated knowledge. Like you should really, really know if you're applying for one of the tracks, if this business, you should have knowledge of what you have done. And you have to show why you are interested in that track. If you're going for leadership in civic engagement, you must also try to provide, evidence that this is what you have been doing, and this is the reason why you're applying for civic engagement. And the same applies to the public leadership in public engagement. And then another thing is that you have to show commitment that you're coming back to Africa. There are instances when people go to the US, they see it as an opportunity, to remain in the US. But in your application, you have to show, because one of the things is that they want to give you a training, a professional development, that you come back and serve your community, because they're saying that you're a leader. So that means there's a lot that you have to come back and do in your community. So this is something you should also show in your application and when you're writing your essays. Another thing is that you must be energetic, and of course with a positive attitude. They said, as you come from different people, what is your attitude? How do you value people? How do you look at people? How do you look at new things, new skills? So is your attitude positive? If somebody tells you this is a model, this is something you're going to learn, how do you take it? So this is something they would also consider in your application. And then this program is sponsored by the US Department of State and through an organization called the IREX. So IREX is International Research or an Exchange Programs, is a US based organization, and they're the ones who are working together with the fellows, in Africa, and they will always verify this information. That's why they have to do the interviews. They want to know that when they shortlist you, they have done a background check about you. They really understand. If you're talking about a company that you're leading in Juba, they will do an underground investigation to know, is this really working? Yeah. If you say you're leading an organization, they will love to know whether this organization really exists or you're just trying to copy things. And that's another thing. Plagiarism is not allowed. Sometimes people tend to copy things, or others can go on the internet and then they look for information that they can search, so that they can put. There's no way you can search information about you on the internet and somebody believes in it. So this one, you also need to be keen on it to make sure that you are not just getting information from the internet. So about the application timelines, the application started from August 15th, and then it's going to end on the 12th. I think the 12th is next week. That is Tuesday. Yeah. So by November, between November and January, uh, applications would have been read, and people who were selected for interviews will be notified. So during that time, you check your emails if you've been shortlisted for the interview or not. If you don't get any emails, that means you have not gone through to the semifinals. And then by March 24, uh, 2024, they will now notify those who have gone through after the interview is conducted, and then they will call you through the embassies. And now the fellowship must play, and this is the period. So you also need to know between now and June, what programs do you have? Do you think like you have time for these? So it's very important. I just want to say this about essays that you'll be writing. You will have to identify exactly what are your
Okay, so we just have a small internet glitch. He will bounce back shortly. Yep, thank you.
Sorry for that. So the essays will focus on your professional accomplishments. They want to look into why you are applying for the specific track that you're applying for, and then the public and the community service programs that you are leading. So you really need to show them the proof. And then what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you work with different people and make sure that you provide a leadership that is inclusive? And then how do you solve challenges within your leadership journey? So those are some of the things that you'll have to consider while you're putting your application. So now I just want to go straight to the application, the questions for the application, so that we address that. Let me see. Let me come here. Um, if you have a question, just feel free. You can drop it there. Maybe I'm talking very fast. You can also let me know. So there are main essays that you'll be answering, and these are the key things. The rest of the things they'll be asking you about your information. They want to know who you are, your level of education, whether you did voluntary work, and just general information about you and about your resume. But these are the questions which are very, very tricky and very important when you are responding, and you have to know really exactly what you're writing. So now for this year, the first question is asking you to provide an overview of your major professional accomplishments from the past year, as well as your long-term goals and aspirations. So here they're asking you about the past years. What have you accomplished in your professional work? Maybe you're a teacher. Let's say you're a teacher, or maybe you're a business person. What have you done in the past years? You just need to put a summary of that. Try to take time and really think about what you want to write. I know that most of us, we do a lot of work, and for example, me, I do business, and as well I do the civic work. I do like working in an organization, and I also teach sometimes at the university. So before I answer the questions, you really need to sit down and think about what you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on your do you want to focus on business? Do you want to focus on the organization that you work with, or you want to focus on the voluntary work that you're doing? So here, talk about what you have achieved in the previous years, and as well, what is your long-term goals and aspirations? You need to point them out. And then what motivates you to work in the field that you have chosen, in the field that you do? This is very important, and it is the first question that the reader will always read. Here, the reader should understand you. If you are an entrepreneur, maybe you're running a tech company, maybe you're running, an organization. It is here that they will get the first insights about you. And then some of the answers that you provide should also be connected to the first response that you give in this essay. So, for example, me, I would say during the time of COVID, I was able to, set up a business that will support vulnerable, communities. The idea of the business is that I want to support people to sell maybe through an online platform. For example, during the time of COVID, I focused on doing online business. Maybe the kind of business I'm doing is online. And so what is my long-term goal and my aspirations? Maybe in the long-term goal is that I want to connect, local business owners to maybe international markets, and also be able to import things from the international market, bring them here. I'm trying to just give an example. If I'm working as maybe I'm doing maybe a business, and then what motivates me to do this is because there is a gap. There's a gap between buyers and sellers. So I want to stand in the middle and make sure that I provide a platform, an online portal, maybe developing an e-commerce website, so that I'm able to support businesses. Those who have, local stores, they should be able to sell online, and people from the international market should be able to access commodities from my country. I'm just trying to give an example if I'm doing business. But then really think about it. What do you want to put as your major accomplishments in the past year? And what is your long-term goal? Why do you even do this? So if you're able to answer this question very well, it will also give you, the insights to answer the second question. This is very tricky. Now, the second question says, based on your understanding of your preferred institute track. Now, the preferred institute track, I told you we have leadership in business, we have leadership in civic engagement, and then in the public management. So if you have chosen, let me say, leadership in business, let me say, so they will say, based on your understanding of your preferred institute track of study, which is maybe leadership in business. So they're asking you specifically, what skills and knowledge do you hope to gain from the fellowship that you will not be able to develop through other opportunities? So they are looking at you going for the Mandela Washington Fellowship to learn more about business. So here the question is asking you, what do you really want to learn? What skills are you looking for that you cannot find them, for example, in the South Sudan? You have to be specific, very specific. So sometimes people mess up things here, and like, I want to go to the US, and people are just excited because they want to go to the US. But you need to identify exactly, outline those skills, point those skills. Maybe the skills you want to learn, how to do professional marketing for your business. If you're working in an organization, you want to learn more about fundraising. If you're maybe interested in M&E, say I want to learn how to develop M&E plans for my organization. Maybe you want to learn how to run a professional business or organization. Or maybe if you're in public, maybe you're a journalist, you want to learn how investigative journalism is done. Maybe you want to learn, you just need to be specific. What do you want to learn that you admire from the US, and you feel like this is really what you want, and you're going to bring it home? And then they ask you the next question: how will you use those skills and the knowledge to enhance your activities in your community within the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years? So in your writing, remember the first question. The first question says you have to give an overview of whatever you're doing. And in the overview, they want to know your long-term plan. So your long-term plan could be the 3 to 4 or 5 years that you will put in your application. What would you really want to do? And then why do you even do this thing? And now remember, this question here is asking you, if you go to the US and you have learned some of these skills, how do you want to use these skills in your work in the next 3 to 5 years? So you can see that there's a connection between the second question and the first question. So you should be able to point this out. How would you want to, use the skills? Maybe you want to scale up your businesses. Maybe you want to develop new business models. Maybe you want to establish a fundraising team in the organization. Maybe you want to establish an online news portal if you're a journalist. You really need to think about what you want to put in your application. That's why I said you cannot Google anything here. You cannot Google anything because it is the information about you. So when people read about you, they get to understand you here clearly. So that is question number two. Question number three, um, it's giving you an opportunity to think. And they give you a quote from Nelson Mandela. And the quote says, a fundamental concern for others is our individual and community. For others in our individual and community lives would go a long way in making the world the better place. So we so passionately dreamt of. Public and community service are essential responsibilities for leaders. And now they ask you, what needs do you believe are most evident in your community? And how are you working to address these needs? Remember, you talked about what you're doing, your long-term plan, and why you're really doing it. And then you want to go to the US to learn skills. And then these skills you're coming to improve on your work. And now they're asking you in this question specifically, they want to know what kind of issues are you solving in the community? This is what the question is looking for. So, what are the problems that the people in South Sudan are facing? If you maybe going to work with entrepreneurs, maybe you're going to work with the students, maybe your program is to support young girls. So, what problems do you see exactly happening in that community? So, when I mean a community, I will mean maybe a group of people here, maybe girls, maybe students. So, in this case, it's called the community. So, what needs do you believe are the most evident ones? And how are you trying to address these needs? So here, you cannot tell everything you're doing. At least give a hint of how you are trying to address these needs. Remember to connect through the solutions that you're providing and what you are doing. That's why they say they want to know that at least you're passionate about the community and there is something you're doing in your community. This is question number three. Try to put realistic issues that really happen in the community. Try to point them out. Maybe young girls are getting married. Girls are getting married before completing their secondary school. You see that this is a big problem, of course. And then what are you doing? Maybe in the organization that you're doing, you are raising awareness. This is a very good thing. Somebody will connect. Somebody will say, okay, so in South Sudan it is true. The person reading should be able to connect with you. Maybe the problem in South Sudan is that we have no mobile financial systems. The adaptation of financial systems is very low. So how are you trying to do this? You're trying to create awareness by exposing people to mobile platforms and online platforms that they can use even to buy things and other mobile money services, for example. This is what you're trying to do. So you need to identify the problem, if it is in the business sector, whether in the civic space, maybe in the government. And how are you trying to do that at your capacity, even as a team? Maybe you're working together as a team in your organization. This is what this question is looking for. And then question number four talks about actually your attitude and just how you look at other people. So they say the Mandela Washington Fellowship values diversity. The diversity, sometimes you find different people coming from different backgrounds. As I said, they also value equity, making sure that treating everybody equally, and then inclusion, making sure that you include everyone in your programming. For example, people with disabilities, people living in disadvantaged communities, making sure that you consider inclusion in your programs. And then accessibility, like who can access some of the things that you do. So are you that kind of a leader who provides a platform where everybody is able to access information or your services? And they said the fellowship values all these traits and strives to include and support diverse identities and ideas in all program design and implementation. It is true that the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program looks for people from different, walks of life. So that's why you find people with disabilities are included. They come for the program. People who identify with different gender and sex, they're also coming for the program. And people with different ideologies, they just want to bring these people together. Now, the question is, how do you approach working with people who have identities and ideas that are different from your own? So this one is asking you specifically on how you look at other people who are different from you, people who come with different ideas, the people who maybe oppose your ideas. I mean, so how have you used inclusive leadership to resolve conflict and achieve progress despite differences? So now here they are asking you, how do you approach people, from different backgrounds? One of the things you could mention is that you always want to create a platform where you want to listen to people. And that's why sometimes when we go for workshops and trainings like that, one of the rules, maybe somebody will say, like last week I was in a training, they said respect the ideas of others. You can suggest, but don't be like, you strongly oppose and you want people to believe in you. So this is an attitude that the Mandela Washington Fellowship will not want. They will need you to be somebody who listens to others, somebody who suggests, somebody who values the ideas of other people. And if the idea is not good, you should be able to correct it in a very good way. And then they're asking you specifically where there was a conflict, because you come from different backgrounds, maybe because you have different ideas. So have you ever solved any problem in that area? So they are looking for evidence. So you should be able to bring this clearly. Maybe you're working, let me say, maybe you're working in civic space and you're doing training. Let's say you're doing awareness in one of the communities. Maybe you go to Yambio, you go to Torit, or maybe to Capoeira, any place that you go to. And then you find that when you go in the community, the people are not receiving your messages. I was giving an example to other young people that their communities maybe in South Sudan where you cannot talk freely about sexual, reproductive health and rights. I'm just giving an example. And so you go to a community where they are not open to this kind of conversations, and yet you know that there are things which are happening in the community which you really want to change. Girls, getting married early, and that's what the community believes. Age, but you have a different belief. You want to really make an awareness in the community that this is not a good idea. So you go to the community and then you find that there's a conflict, maybe people different ideas and people don't believe in what you're saying, but at the end of the day you really want to pass your information, you really want to communicate what you're doing, maybe you want to implement your project. So how do you use inclusive leadership, people with different ideas and beliefs from yours, to make sure that you achieve what you plan to do? So this is a question which asks about your capability to solve problem that you might face, as you go to the community, even as you work with people. So here you have to really bring an example. I'll always say this: bring an example of how you have, solved the conflict. Even during interviews, sometimes they ask you this question, whether you have had conflict with your boss. Something, relevant, you have to bring it here. Many people lie in this question. They try to, coin a story. They try to bring a story, but yes, you can bring a story, but is it realistic? Does it sound something realistic? Many people bring just scenarios here, but yeah, think about it, what you really want to write, what story you want to put, and remember, there is a limit for the words that you have to put. So go straight to the point. Go exactly, this is what happened, and I was able to solve a problem between A and B, and this is what I did. Maybe these are people that you're leading and they are under your leadership. So how have you solved an issue between the two people? Think about this. Nobody will write this for you, but you can do it better. So what we normally do is, if I read your application, I want to know what I can understand, your story easily. So if I can understand your story easily, and then I'll be like, wow, I feel the story. I can put myself in the picture of the story, and that's where I can give marks. So every question, for example, the essays, they are being ranked from 1 to 10. So if you put a very good story that everybody understands, maybe the readers will understand, they can rank you, like they can give you 10. But if you don't give a good response, a good essay, somebody will decide, like, I think I don't understand this person. Somebody can just give you 2. And that can affect your progress in the application. So think about what you really want to put, and make sure that you write something realistic, even if you want to bring a story which is old, but make sure that it sounds realistic and the reader should believe in what you're writing. And then the last question talks about resilience and how you're able to, influence others. So here they said resilience, especially in the face of sudden change. Change happens in an organization, in an institution, in a community, anywhere. So change can happen. And we said is a critical quality in effective leaders. Resilience is what they're trying to refer to. Now, they're asking you to provide an example of how you have demonstrated resilience during challenging times. They believe that every leader, has gone through challenges, but then you have to be resilient even when things happen. For example, you were running a business, or maybe anything, like you had programs that you are running during the time uh, before COVID came, and then now there was COVID. And now they're asking you, when COVID came, how were you able to run your business? In simple, this is the kind of question they're trying to ask you. Were you able to run your business even during the time of COVID where there was a lockdown? So they want to know how creatively you really remained resilient to what you're providing during the time of challenges. And then if you are resilient, they want to know how this experience has influenced your work. you know as I talked about, maybe you go to a community, and then people are not accepting what you're trying to tell them, but then you have to persist, you have to be resilient until you make sure that you implement what you went for. So in that scenario, how has that influenced your leadership or your current work, the work that you're doing? This is also good question that is asking really for you to express what you're doing and how you have solved the problem and how you have remained resilient, maybe running an organization, maybe running a business during challenging moments, that you're able to come out and still stand strong. So this experience should have influenced you in a way. So how has it influenced you? Has it influenced you to work more harder, to reach out to more people, or maybe to be creative and to provide alternative solutions, to look for better ways to communicate? I love what Bida is doing, because before COVID, we never had such an opportunity to interact online using different platforms. But now that we're here, so how has this, for example, influenced your work? If I'm to ask you, like, Bida, I know that you can express because you understand what you're doing, and you'll be like, yeah, my experience is that I really want to continue doing this more, and engage with more people. And I know that when you started online webinars and the master classes, maybe it's in the beginning 10 people started and it was challenging. So how have you remained resilient in this? And how has it influenced what you're doing currently within the organization? So this one, they're asking you particularly to give an example of how you have used your leadership during challenging moments. So these are the main questions for the essays for this year. And I want to give an opportunity, if there's someone text in the chat room. Um, okay, somebody wants to have the presentation. I will send it to Bida. and I think he will send it in the WhatsApp group. If that is okay, yeah, Bida will share this. So thank you, Speaker. I would like to ask you this tangible question: what are the academic qualifications to get enrolled in the Mandela Washington Fellowship? What is the duration? What duration will it take? What is your personal challenging experience during this? Okay, so I just want to respond to these questions from, oh, this person, you're using Samsung. Your name is not appearing here. But yes, as I said, in terms of qualification, they really want to know that you're a leader. Even I know of people who finished senior four and they still went for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I know someone who didn't finish even senior four and they still went for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. All they want is that you're able to answer the essays correctly. You're able to provide a track of your leadership, professional journey, and just to show that you're influencing other people. That's the main thing. Somebody can be a PhD holder but cannot respond to these questions. It's not doing anything. So at the end of the day, it's not academic qualification that takes the person there. It is your work as a leader, and that's why the questions are very specific. Then the second question is the duration. The Mandela Washington Fellowship is a 6 weeks program. And then for those who apply for the professional development experience, which we call the PDE, it's about a month, like 4 weeks. So you remain in the US, and then you work in the US with a company or with the government or with the organization of your choice, depending on what you're applying for. And then what is your personal challenging experience faced during the leadership? Okay, so the leadership is exposing people to new things. That's one thing. When I went there, I thought that I know about business and I know about running things. But when I went there, the professors were well informed of our situation back home. And so it was challenging because they requested, they asked, they really want to know that when you come back, you're able to, do something. And sometimes they ask you to put a plan. What is your plan that, when you come back home, you're going to start implementing? And that is one of the challenging things because you begin to look back and forth. Sometimes you're thinking of money and there's no money. And that is where it becomes challenging if you don't know where to start. That's why when people come from the US, from the Mandela program, they come with a different energy. If you happen to meet one of them, I'm sure they will tell you how they want to change things. But sometimes, with the resources which are not there. But the Mandela program, once you participate in it, there are opportunities that you can always get. At the end of the fellowship, there are grants, there are funds that you can apply for them. And my story is that when I came back from the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I was really thinking of what I wanted to do. And I was having this company that were running, and then I wanted to see that I have an influence and do something for the young people in my age group. So that's how Connector Hub started. For those who didn't know how the story of Connector came, it was during the time of the fellowship when I sat down and put down my plan. I said, this is what I wanted to do. And honestly, I didn't have money. I didn't know where I was going to start it all. But then I came and I started Connector in my room. This is what I told people. Where I was seated, I had a computer. At least I have a table. I put the table there and said, "This is where I'm going to be working and developing my ideas for Connector Hub." And so in 2020, we're the last group that went to the US in 2019. And then 2020, there was COVID. Everything was back to zero. It's like you can't do anything. There are opportunities, but there are already restrictions. You can't do, things really you wanted to do. And so what I did was that I applied for a grant, which was provided by the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And the grant was about $5,000. I applied for the grant when I returned back home. And then in 2020, I got the grant, but then it was not easy to bring people because there was a lockdown and there were restrictions. Even like for those of you who remember what was happening during that time. But then I had to be resilient. If I talk about resilience, This is what I mean. Starting something in a hard time, and I had to make sure that it was able to run, and for people to know that there's an organization, that is running. So it was not easy. But of course, I'm talking about the opportunities that you get after the fellowship. There are grants, like what we call the link grants, the reciprocal exchange grant. The reciprocal exchange grant is the one that I first got, because you need to connect with someone in the US. You apply for the grant, and then the person has to come here. You implement a project, and that's what I said. Many times you put down your plans during the fellowship program, thinking of where to start, but again, they give you the opportunity to apply for those grants, and that's the beauty of it. I know people who are running organizations now. There's one guy. He's a doctor. I was with him recently. He started, with grants through the Mandela Washington Fellowship, and he was able to put up. He's in Ghana. He now has a big hospital that he has put in Ghana in his community, and is serving about 100,000 people in the community. So this is one of the things. He applied for the grant, he got the grant, and he built the hospital, and that is how he's now growing. Right now, he's employing people, and he's working with different people and serving them in the community. So a lot of opportunities come, and then me. Another opportunity about me is that, when I went for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, when I applied, I did not apply for the PDE, what we call the Professional Development Experience. I did not apply for it. But now they have allowed you to apply for a virtual, PDE, where you can be in Juba or anywhere, and then you work with a company of your interest in the US. So last year I applied, for the PDE, and then they accepted me to do the PDE, and then I was telling them the kind of company that I'm looking for, and then they connected me to one of the biggest companies in the US called the Drupal. For those who are in tech space, they may understand what Drupal is. Is an open source platform, and they provide content creators the opportunity to develop websites and develop other things. So this year I started doing my PDE. It also runs for 4 weeks. So when I did my PDE, I was working virtually with a team, and monitoring projects and communities in Africa. And then luckily I had an opportunity. They said, Dennis, well done. We love your work, and we're inviting you to the US to come and attend one of our conferences. So I was like, my head went off. I'm like, really? Are you guys serious about this? They said, yes, we have a sponsorship for you. We're going to invite you to come to the US. And that's how I got myself in the US in June, through the Mandela Washington Fellowship opportunity of the PDE. I think most of my work has really been out there because of my engagement in the Mandela Washington Fellowship. I've traveled some places within Africa, and a few countries. It's because my track record of what I've been doing and connecting to myself as a Mandela Washington fella, because it gives you some kind of credibility in your resume and the things that you're doing. They believe that if you went for the Mandela Washington Fellowship, your thinking is different, the way you do things are different. So I was in the US, and then they invited me. When the fellowship guys saw that I was in the US, they said, Dennis, we need you to come for the summit and speak to the people. And that was also an opportunity to speak amongst, in the presence of 700 and 1,000 people for the first time, standing in that crowd, and where there are government officials from the US, different people, and you're given only 5 minutes to speak your part and to tell people what you have done and inspire them as they join the Mandela Washington Fellowship Alumni Network. I mean, it was really good. We were 6 alumni from different countries. One of the guys, I met him yesterday. He's in Rwanda. I also had an opportunity to see his office. I mean, so it gives you the opportunity to network, and also to know different people, and how you can develop your skills. So it is really not about just going to the US, attending a program, but about the impact that you want to bring back home. So there's a question here. Somebody asked about What about some of us who are working in dispensing pharmacy? Yes, in the government hospital. This is an opportunity for you. You can go for the public engagement. Yeah. So talk about what you're doing. I just told you about this colleague from Ghana who is a doctor. He's actually a doctor, and then he went there. He attended the leadership in civic engagement. Or you can also apply for civic engagement or anyone, and then just write a good essay. Once you're there, you have an opportunity to learn from doctors. And right now he's doing great job. I mean, he has a big hospital in his community, and he's serving his people already because of what he's been doing. What about those who are not from SSD? Are we also eligible to apply from DR Congo? Yes. If you are in DR Congo, you can still apply. So the countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, DR Congo, all the regions within, please apply. As you go to the application portal, you will see a list of countries that you have to select where you belong to, which country you come from. So select. If your country is not there, that means you are not eligible. So people from Egypt cannot apply, and few other countries, they are not. Libya, they are not applying, and I think yeah, some countries are not applying for this, but majority of the countries are applying. Somebody is asking, were you an alumni before applying for the Mandela Washington Fellowship? I was not alumni, but there is what we call the regional the Yali Regional Learning Centers, which is a center based in Africa. So we have three centers. I think we have the central, we have the western, and then we have the eastern. So for the Eastern Africa, it brings the countries within the Eastern African region. So they all apply. For Africa, you can apply for the one within, and then if you attend the regional one, you can still apply for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. But if you attend the Mandela Washington Fellowship, you cannot apply for the regional one because they believe that the Mandela Washington Fellowship is the peak of, the Yali program. So you can be a Yali alumni for the regional and also still apply for the Mandela Washington Fellowship. When do we answer these questions? A is, my profession is a sign language interpreter. Do I also fit for the fellowship? You fit in the fellowship. Just talk about what you're doing and whom are you impacting. This is what I'm saying. If you're working with people, with disabilities in that area, please just explain how you're able to use your interpretation to impact on the lives of others. Actually, they also give you stipend for it. I'm just trying to run through the questions. Is it a full funded fellowship? Yes, it is full funded. They pay for your ticket, they pay for your stay, they also give you a stipend for you to live in the US, but of course not a lot of money, but something that they know can support you for the next 6 weeks while you're in the US. Of course, some institutes give you more money, others give you less money, so it depends on where you will go. But yeah, there's money they give you. Sorry. And then somebody said, apply for ongoing application when I'm ready applying for this. So the application is going on. As I say, the deadline is on the 12th. If you start the application, it will take you about 90 minutes to finish it. If you sit like focus on the application, the main challenge is always the essay questions. These essays are the ones that you really need to give your time to it. So an estimate of 90 minutes. I'm sure that you can give your time, even an hour. If you're good in writing, you can even do within an hour. They make it like that because if the application procedure is easy, then everybody will apply for it. And there are moments where you'll start the application and then like, no, let me finish it tomorrow. And so please, if you start applying, give yourself time and please apply for it. 1 hour is good. You can also save it. You can save the application and then continue from there. How many young African leaders do they take per country? So there is no there's they, they don't have a specific like for this country, but different countries they take different people. I think South Sudan they take only 10. This is what I said. For South Sudan they take 10, and Nigeria, because they consider the population of the country. So Nigeria they normally take a lot of them because of the population in Nigeria, about 30 of them. 30 around 30. So the other countries even they take 2 or 3, like Somalia had 2 only. So it is not really a formula that I know, but please just apply and just try your luck. Once you go through, then it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity that will change your life. How will those interested to access the application forms? So the application is done online. I'm going to share the link here for you to know. Just to go to Mandela, www.mandela-washington-fellowship.com, and then you say apply. So that should take you to the application portal. I just need to be sure, but I think that is the one. For those who are in the WhatsApp group, you can get the application link right there. Let me just do it again. Sorry, I sent it to an individual. I need to send it to the team. Okay. But you can go on the internet on Google and just to say Mandela Washington Fellowship. Okay, so it is .org, Mandela Washington Fellowship.org, and then /apply. /apply. Let me do it again to everyone. Perfect. Thanks, James. James has put for us the link there. So what you need to do is that you create an account. The first thing that you do, you have to create an account. Use your email, the email that you have access to it, because if you go through, they will be contacting you through that email. So the first thing is have your email, create the account, and then the password. Some people confuse the passwords. They put the passwords for their emails. No, you need to create a password for the application portal. So the application is done online. Create your accounts, and then they start. They will ask you the questions. You'll be following each question one at a time. And then once you're done, there is a submit button. I was doing one for training. Let me just try to check it if I have access to it. I'm just trying to check it out. Mandela. So if you started applying, it doesn't mean you need to, and they stop on the way. I say there is a save button. So I'm going now to the application where I started an application process, and then I'm going to show you where some of the things you're going to be doing. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, right here. So you go to www.mandelawashingtonfellowship.org, and then you put /apply. So when you click on that, the link that was shared there, this is the page that you see. So there are things here. If you are a new user, it means that you create an account. You need to start your application here, and then they will ask you to create an account. But then after creating your account, you can put a password, and then you log in into your email. So here I was using this just for training purpose. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sign in for you to see the questions. I already saved my password in my computer and I have access to it. So let's see how the questions look like from the start. Logging in. Okay, so after logging in, I was just doing this for test, but yes, these are the questions. One of the questions, when you log in, this is what it gives you. It gives you an information. So please read this information. It's very important for you. It's very important for you to read. And then once you're done, they have a question of eligibility. Remember, there is where they say eligibility. So here, they ask you, what is your country of citizenship? So you have to come down to a list of countries. So these are the countries which are eligible. So if your country is not here, that means you are not eligible. So once you select your country, maybe you're from Nigeria, you're from DR Congo, Kenya, choose the country. Yeah. For example, here, I chose that I'm from South Sudan. So I put here South Sudan. They put here, they say countries whose citizens are eligible for the Mandela Washington Fellowship are listed. If your country of citizenship is not listed, you are not eligible for the fellowship. They make it clear. Yeah. And then they also ask you the second question: do you have a secondary citizen? For example, you're a citizen of another country. You know, people have dual citizenship. So here, if you say yes, they will ask you for the information about that country. Yeah. But if you say no, that question will not pop up. So, and then they ask you, what is your country of residence? Where do you reside currently? So you have to choose also from the immediately. So when you answer this, just read the question and then respond.
Are you there? Looks like we have lost you. But yeah, you can keep your
People
questions
are trying to
coming.
comment your question. And then if you say
Okay.
save and continue will take you to the next question. Yeah. So we say save after filling the information, save and continue. So they will give you now the next question. So the next question here, they're asking about your names, and then they will capture information about you, where you live in the country. They also ask to know if you have a passport or not. So this information is there for you. Yeah. And then after you fill this information, that's why I said it was easier. So you can just run through and then save. Make sure that you give correct information about you, where they ask, for example, if they ask about your work, if you have any professional work that you're doing, just type. There is a number of words that you're supposed to type in some of the questions. Be specific and go straight to the point. Don't explain things outside. People will not understand your questions. Yeah. So there's an example here. Please list your experiences in reverse chronicle order. This is important. So if you're putting your experiences, it has to be in a reverse. So what does reverse means? That means you start from the latest and then you go backwards. Yeah. You start with the most recent. If you're working in an organization, you put the current work that you're doing, and then you go backwards to where you have been working before. So make sure that you understand. Read the instructions given. That's the good thing. They have put the instructions, and you can at least read. You can read, and even they give you like tips, including information about your current position and up to four others. So you can put about four other positions that you held. That one gives you an upper hand. Yeah. So once you fill this information here, for example, you have filled one, you're working with one organization, maybe Connect a Hub, and you want to add another one, just come down here. They'll say add another professional what? Experience. Don't be in a hurry. Just do the right thing. Take your time with understanding and work on it. You click on add another professional experience, the name of organization and where you worked, then you continue. If you don't want like this, I remove it. And then save your work. The next one is about your resume and education. So here they need also to list your educational experiences in a reverse chronicle order. Remember this always. For example, I started with the University of Juba, and then where else did I study? So you have to put this, maybe up to your secondary. You start with where you are currently and then go backward. There are questions that you need to, and then in the point of description, always what they ask for description. The description part is not compulsory. So when you see something with the red, it means it's compulsory. So when they say description, for example, here they said 100 words, you just need to give a short description. If you're a student, what did you study? What I put here is just for me to put information, but this is not what you should write. You can tell I studied this, and this was my concentration. These are the projects I worked on during my university time. So give a highlight of the work that you're doing. Is very important to just give a highlight, and then go to the next. The next question will still ask about your resume, and then they want to know about professional trainings. I know that like Bida has been doing trainings, professional trainings like fact checking. Maybe you did professional training, maybe in project management, M&E, something that you did not learn in maybe in your class. You can also put it here as part of your accomplishments. There is instruction. What you see here is an instruction of how you can put a good description of yourself. So think about it. What you really want to do, like me, I did M&E. Was it in person? Was it hybrid, virtual? So you just need to choose, put the right words, and then you continue to the next one. So we're going next. They want to know about your community and volunteer work. Remember, it's very important that you volunteer somewhere. Some people will say, I've not done any volunteer work, but is it true? You might volunteer even in church, maybe in your mosque, or maybe a place where you are, maybe engaged in keeping your city clean. Maybe that's what you did, is a voluntary work. Remember, a community of voluntary work is something that you do without even considering to be paid for. Like now, I'm doing this as a voluntary work. So I could be able to mention this as something that I do, for example, in my resume. So think about what you've really done, your community volunteering in a charity. Maybe you visited orphans, maybe you trained children, something that you did for the community. Think about it and also put it in your application. Then we have awards. If you got awards, some fellowships, you have attended scholarships, very important. Please put them down. If you have more, there is a button always down there that says add another one. You can add it based on what you have. So just make sure you put it correctly. They also ask you about English, the languages that you speak. And then they also ask about your computer skills. What skills do you have? So for example, MS Word, if you know another one, you come to add. they have given you examples here. The good thing is that they have given you how to write this application, and it's a good thing. And then publications, conferences, and notable presentations. If you have done presentations and you have the links, just put them somewhere. So here in this question, I said I do not have. Well, they tell you all sections must be completed. They say, including information about you, it is recommended that you format your entries as citations according to this, but doing so is not required. So they just give you this kind of format. But yeah, for you, if you write research or anything, definitely you know what that means, but you can put it. If you don't have anything, don't copy someone's writing and then put it, because it will affect your application. Associations and affiliations. So you need to know which associations you're affiliated with. Maybe it's a community association, maybe you're part of a group of people in technology, maybe business association, civil society association, organizations. So whatever you have, so please put it down, and it's very important. Though they don't consider it much, but it is still good. The instructions are there even for this part. Your demographic information. They want to know what kind of person you are, how you identify yourself, whether you have a disability. You know, this is good for them. Just for them to know who you are at the end of the day. But yeah, you can just fill what you think you are, and then they're asking for your contacts, your primary contacts, and the people in case you're not there who can be contacted, and then for alternative emails or communications that can be made. So you can choose that. And then professional or educational background, you can choose what you learned and which area of your, this question says select up to 5. So you're only selecting 5. Sometimes you may be tempted to select 6 and it will not go. So you need to know each time you make an error and you wanted to submit, it will not be possible. They will tell you there's an error in this. Now, they will also refer questions to some of the points that you mentioned. They will bring questions to ask. For example, here, they picked this position that I was doing for this application, and then they asked me other questions. So you need to connect your answers. Remember, this is very, very important. You need to always connect your answers. And then, yes, you may be working in a business, but you're applying for civic engagement. Somebody may have that kind of question. So it is how you put your essays to, attract the attention of the reader. Once you catch the attention of the reader, definitely you have a high chance to be ranked. But if you confuse the questions, then somebody will not understand what you're writing. So here they're just asking about your yearly engagement. So we have yearly regional leadership center, the one I talked about. There's also the yearly network. So they want to know how you really learned about this information. So if they ask you, you can say you got this from an alumni. It could be alumni, yes, for example, here, alumni, and then please list the alumni here. So if you're considering to put me to be the person who gave you the information, so my year is 2019, they will always ask you that. And they want to know that, people are doing something and they are passing information. If you got it from a website or any other, they will also ask you the next question. And then there are yearly courses which are for free, absolutely free. These are some of the courses. I will also encourage you to do some of these courses, just to go to yearly network online courses on the internet, pick a course. I'm sure that some of you already have a knowledge of some of these courses. They are good. They also add strength to your application. It shows that you have been engaging with the yearly network. So if you have attended some of these courses, you can select which ones you have attended. And another one here is that they expect you, if you learned something, being able to share with others. If you attended the event, if no, just be honest and just choose what is right, and then move on. Say save and continue. And then they want to know your US government program experience. So whether you attended any of these US programs is a list of so many of them. If you have not attended any, you just leave it. This question is compulsory, but in this case, you can choose none. You know, if you attended any, you choose that one, but they will ask you questions at least to explain. These are some of the programs of the US Department of State. And then the other question is, have you traveled to the US before? Um, if you say yes, they will ask you when, and they will ask you other questions. Yeah. So if you traveled, you can tell better. But if you have not traveled, just avoid questions and just say no. And you continue to your work. This is just simple. You can do this within the next 20 minutes, just like the way we're doing it now. And then the language, English, please always choose high ranking English. If English, you're good, for example, here, make sure that you choose the best ranking. Very good, very good. You must ensure that you're good in English. If you have a challenge, just choose what you can. And then this next question is asking about the leadership track that you're going to apply for. They have also given the instructions here, and they talked about the leadership in business, civic engagement, then public management. So you can spend at least 5 minutes, read about this before you select. And now here, you have to choose, you have to make a choice of 1, 2, 3 of your preferred track. For example, here, if your first choice is leadership in business, what will be your second choice, and then the third choice? You can select that accordingly. So if your first choice is civic engagement, make sure you indicate it clearly. And remember, the choice you make here will have to go with your essays, the essays that you're writing in your application. So just save that and go to the next. Now, this is where now it brings you to the personal essays that I've been talking about. So you have to take note of this, that plagiarism is not allowed. They talk about it here. Once they realize that the essays are not yours, maybe you copied from someone, definitely they will know it, and then they'll disqualify you. So please be original. The information should be about you. You need to write it yourself. If you want somebody to read, that is fine. It is allowed. Somebody can read just to cross-check with the language, with understanding of your, of your essays. But please don't copy information from someone or from the internet. They use tools to read this, and they will know whether copying this from someone. So be original as you are. So this is the first question, the one I talked about. They only need 250 words. As you keep writing, it will keep telling you how many words you have written, and then how many words you're remaining with. You don't need to write all the 250 words. If you can express yourself with even less than 100, so long as the information you put is straight to the point, you can put a paragraph and just explain it clearly. Let somebody understand. So you don't need to write all the 250 words, so that you're thinking of what you write, because you'll be thinking, and then you'll mess up your application. Go straight to the point, explain yourself with the words that you can afford, and then leave it as it is. If you want to add more, just come later. These are the questions we went through. And then this one also has 250 words. And then there's a short essay. This is about 150 words. You can also check this as well. And once you put all this, you save, and then it brings you to the next one, which is the PDE. So the PDE is optional. If you really want to apply for it, it is up to you. But if you don't, you just choose. But you have to read the instructions here. So once you understand the instructions, and then they will say, go ahead, the questions are here. Provide a brief description of your work. You can write like 150 words. And then the next question, there are only 2 questions, but you have to write an essay. That one is the 250. They really want to know what you're interested to learn and what skills you want to bring back home from the PDE when you attend it. So this one is not compulsory, it is optional. You can choose to apply or no. It is here. If you say no, and then they push you ahead. If you say yes, and then that's when you will have to provide your responses. Yeah, I'm just putting those to take us to the next one. Just write things about you. Now, once you're done with the essays, it will tell you the status of your application. That means this part here is completed. You have answered everything. If there's something which is missing, they will tell you something is missing. So from the look of things, I have, gone through all the questions. It means I have answered everything accordingly. If I am sure, then what I will do is I will come here to review. So the review means that I just want to check whatever I have written. Am I truly from South Sudan? So did I provide the correct information? If you see that there is information which is not correct, maybe you really want to add something on that, just click on that specific item, and then it will take you to the edit. You'll be able to edit and then provide the information you want. And once you have done that, the button is here, the submit button. So the submit button, once you click on it, your application will be sent. So until you click on the submit button, your application will still be in the draft. So make sure that you write everything after doing the review, submit application before the 12th of September. So this is all it takes, about an hour or so, for you to put this application up and to write about yourself. It is not easy, but those who are committed will always, give their time to apply for this. I don't want to submit because this is not an application I'm submitting. I'm just doing this for learning purpose, for us to get to know the questions that they're asking and what they really want. So this is it about the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Let me see some of the questions here. What makes your application more appealing? It is how you write it. Remember, talk about what you're doing. Very, very important. I started the application, got stuck. No, you don't need to start again. Remember to put your password and your email password that you can remember, so that when you go to the apply to the application portal, you'll be able to continue from there. All you just need is to put your password and then continue. So much more interested in applying for entrepreneurship. How many working experience? You don't need years in experience. Even if you have 1 year and you have done a remarkable work, you have, the impact, just go ahead, apply. They are looking for how you have solved the problem. Remember what I said in the questions? They are very, very intentional in those questions, and make sure that you answer them rightly, so that when they read about you, they understand for sure this is you and this is what you're doing. I volunteered with one of the NGOs. Unfortunately, they didn't give us recommendations. So there is no need for recommendation. A recommendation is not needed, but you can talk about what you did in that previous organization. You can talk about it. If I haven't received any award, is it necessary to fill? No. As I said, put information about you. If something is not there about you, don't lie. Don't put what is not there. Just give exactly. So yes, there's a problem with always the zip code for South Sudan, because it's asked somewhere. And so what I normally do is that I put 88111. That is the zip code I normally use, the postal code. You can put a number. It really won't affect your application, but they just want to know that you're in South Sudan or you're in Juba. So for Juba, any application I write, I put that zip or postal code for South Sudan. Concerning the attachment of the credentials, is there a unique way of scanning them? You're not attaching any document. They are not asking you to attach any document. They just want you to tell your story. much better and easier for somebody to understand. So no attachments will be needed unless otherwise, but no attachments are required. As you have seen, we went through all the questions. So there's no question that wanted you to attach any document. How about those who manage accounts and audit firms? Will they consider? I say this is for everyone who identifies as a leader, whether in the civic, in the business, in the public, working in the government, provided that you have a track of impact to the community and the people that you're leading. So this is what it is. It is not about where you are. You can be a doctor, you can be a farmer, you can be any person, and you can still apply for the what? For the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Madenia, please, if you can mute your microphone. Madenia, we are hearing some noise from the background. Thank you. So this is all I have to say about the Mandela Washington Fellowship process and the application. So start now. If you cannot start now, at least give yourself time. It needs like an hour. I said 90 minutes. If you have the time, dedicate yourself. The main points are the essays. I'm going to share the main essays in the WhatsApp group. I will send them to Bida so that you can even prepare ahead of time. You can type them in a Microsoft Word. If you don't have access to internet, type them in a Microsoft Word, and then later on you can just copy and paste, provided that you have proofread, and then the words are not more than what is required. If the words are more, the system will tell you to reduce the words so that you can put less words from the ones that are required. So I think that is it. Otherwise, I'm excited. I hope I've responded to all the questions. If there's any one is still having something, let me know before I hand over to Bida. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. If you can handle it. Yeah, absolutely. I have my WhatsApp number. You can reach out to me, and I'm also in the WhatsApp group where I think the professional development is going on. So you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. If you are able to reach the final stage, another thing, final here. So if you're here, you can download your application as a PDF. Yeah. So before you submit, generate a PDF. That means here you're downloading your application as a PDF. You click on it, and then it will download as a PDF. You can send me that PDF to read your application, and then I'll give you feedback. I'll just screenshot and tell you here is where you need to clarify and work better. So this is what happened. So please send me the PDF versions of your application, and then let's pick up from there. Otherwise, I want to hand over. Thanks, James. It's my pleasure. Maybe outside the country as a refugee. So if you are outside the country as a refugee, I know in our time, 2019, there was a guy who is a refugee and he was in Yale, but again, he applied. So please remember, when you choose the country of residence where you currently reside, if you choose Uganda or Kenya, where you are a refugee, you have to put the postal code of where you are. But if you think that you'll be in South Sudan by June, and then you just need to put the right information. That's all I can tell you. Put the right information about you, and that's what they are looking for. They just want to know that you are a leader and you're very honest with what you provide to them. You can also Google, if you don't know the postal code for your area, you can Google. Just ask Google the postal code for this area, and then Google will tell you. I think Google is a good friend. Many of us, we have depended on Google a lot, so you can do that. But in any case, you have a question, and in the WhatsApp group, I'll be there actively for those who will be asking questions about the application process. You want me to review applications, I'll be glad to do so until the 12th. So please submit your applications at least by 11th if you could. that will be good for you, because you don't know what will happen. The system, many people will be hiring to do, they'll be uploading and submitting theirs. So now the system may be weak, or the internet, and you'll be caught up. So it's better you do it early, submit, and then you relax as you wait for the feedback. Yeah. So back to you, Bida.